Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, June 23rd, 2022. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time, 8 o'clock Central. We talk strategies, tips, share success stories, but primarily we're here to support each of you. So let's go back to the basics and let's review the three things that you and I do to help small businesses as technical advisors. That's our specific term. If you were to identify the category of what you and I do, it's technically or specifically called a technical advisor. So there are three things that you and I do to help small businesses. The first of which is we help them build their financial literacy. We help them understand those things that many of them don't know about how to become credible on paper, how to be able to get approved for funding. And we can dig into how that occurs, but that's the first of the three things that you and I do. The second of which is we help them build a lender compliant loan package. We need to have the right documentation and the right presentation to be able to get approved for many types of funding. And then thirdly, what we do is we help small businesses become credible enough to get funding. So let's look at that more sequentially. So if someone just came to you and I and just said, okay, I just want financial literacy, and then I want to go get funding, would that work? No. It would create awareness of what lenders and issuers of credit are looking for. So we could benefit the participant with greater knowledge, but knowledge, if not applied, is not going to change their fundability. So financial literacy, fun, exciting, we talk a lot about that, needed, but that enough is not going to get them funding. What about that loan package, that second? If we just created a loan package for everyone, is that enough to get them funding? Well, if they're credible enough, they're able to meet the underwriting criteria of the specific type of capital that we're applying for, then yes, the loan package certainly gets them in what we call in good order to be able to go to funding. But the reality of it is it's that third aspect that's so important, because the honest truth is there's going to be a lot of clients that come to you and I, and they're not credible enough yet for what they want to accomplish. And so this is not a magic rainbow with a pot of gold at the end. What we need to do is meet the underwriting criteria to get approved. Well, just like you and I learned in school, just like you and I teach on a regular basis, if you're wanting to borrow money, now there's other types of capital that's not debt that doesn't have to be paid back. But if your goal is to borrow money, then it comes down to the rule of the 3 C's. So what do lenders look for? Ideally, they like to see all 3 C's, but keep in mind, there certainly are specific types of funding that you can get approved for with just one of the 3 C's. But what are the 3 C's? Credit, capacity, collateral. So let's go through each of those briefly. On credit, there are 2 types of credit: personal credit and business credit. As we take clients through our 4-week curriculum, which I can reflect on and tell you more about if you want, but our award-winning curriculum developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA, in module 2 of the 4, we focus on credit. And we educate, so we build financial literacy about how personal credit works and how business credit works. And then we apply that. We actually help each participant build their business credit to become more credible on paper. And with that credibility, we actually help them get at least $10,000, 10,000, at least 10,000 of business credit, funding credit that they can use for their business while they're going through the 28-day process. So business credit is important, and it's included, it's part of what we do. The other type of credit is personal credit, and that ties more to what you're seeing on the shared screen. You're going to have some instances where clients come to you and they don't look credible on paper in the aspect of credit. So again, if they're not credible from a business credit perspective, we can help them build that out, and that is part of the curriculum. On the personal side, the way that often it's addressed, well, let's drill to the specifics before we come to the conclusion. So how do you and I as technical advisors address personal credit? I'm going to use the verb address in the most general sense. Well, the first thing that you and I do is, as they're in module 2 of the 4 modules, again, award-winning curriculum developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA, grade A. So nothing sketchy or questionable about it. We teach them about personal credit. So that's the first thing. And I know probably everyone knows about personal credit. Do they understand really how it works? And there certainly can be misinformation. But regardless, so we start with the financial literacy in module 2. And then our action step is what? In module 2, we say, okay, let's go ahead and do a soft credit pull. And we provide them a link. And that soft credit pull, which does not impact their score, feeds into our database, so we're able to help profile them to see how credible they are, how ready they are for funding. Again, you and I know there's different sources of capital. Some of those sources don't look at personal credit at all. So that's a true statement. We're not changing the rules there. But it is also useful to know that there are some sources of capital that do look at personal credit. And then to complicate things even more, there are some sources of capital that use a hybrid credit scoring algorithm. We've talked about this some before, and I think a lot of you are familiar with it, but it's called FICO SBSS, Small Business Scoring System. And so, for instance, if you want to get an SBA loan, which I used to work for the SBA, we're not all about SBA, so there's many other sources of capital. But if you want to get an SBA loan, they look at your SBSS score. Well, that is an algorithm it's a hybrid. It incorporates both some elements of personal credit and some elements about business. Well, I'm prepared to defend this, because what I know is a lot of you are going to have clients come back and say, well, I just want to get funding off of my business credit, not use my personal credit. Well, there are some sources of capital that will do that, understood. And if that's their wish, that's what we can build the plan off of. But let's understand, why would a lender care about personal credit? Because in some cases, we need to stop looking at it from our point of view and look at it from the other party. So the other party is the lender. The lender is someone that's taking the risk, that is wiring, let's say, $100,000 over to the borrower's account. Well, to no surprise, what would the lender like to know before they wire $100,000 over to the borrower? They would like to know, how likely are they to get repaid? Because that's the goal, right? Sure, they'd like to make a little bit of interest and maybe fees, but ultimately they'd really like to be repaid, because lenders are not in business to lose money. Well, how does a lender go about deciding what the likelihood of repayment is? They typically will look at the 3 C's, but again, I know some lenders and extenders of credit will only look at one of the 3 C's, but in general, they'll look at the 3 C's. So personal credit, as it ties here, and we're looking at it, is a predictor. Well, what is credit scores? What are credit scores? Credit scores are a numerical risk factor that takes into consideration how risky we are. And so obviously it's a reflection of how we have paid our bills in the past. Well, is that necessarily an accurate predictor of what we'll do in the future? No, not necessarily. Things could change. Maybe we'll do things differently. But in general, if you're looking at it from the lens of the lender, whatever someone has done in the past, especially the recent past, is in fact the best predictor of the future, because frankly, no one knows the future. So with all that being said, is it smart? Is it an intelligent decision to optimize one's personal credit? Of course, because we are often measured by our personal credit. When you buy insurance, a lot of employment opportunities now, and of course, things that involve money often look at personal credit because it determines, will we do what we promise to do? Because a credit report, when there's negative items on the credit report, and the credit report's made up of multiple variables and multiple factors, but in terms of payment history, when we don't pay as agreed, we either pay late or don't pay at all, that means technically we breached the agreement. We did not do what we promised to do. Now, everyone has a reason for why that is. So I didn't pay it because I lost my job, or I had COVID, or I had a relative that died. And I'm not demeaning any of that. But ultimately, to the lender doesn't really care about COVID, death, or loss of employment. The lender or extender of credit just simply wants to be paid as they were promised to be paid. And if not, then they will report it negative. They may report it negatively on credit. So at the end of the day, what you and I do is help people become more credible. And one element of that is improving credit, one of the 3 C's. And a subsection of credit is personal credit. And the way that we often will help individuals improve their credibility, their personal credit, is with the free 60-day credit sweep. So we're going to spend just a couple minutes talking about it. But really, we want to answer questions. What questions do you have about the free 60-day credit sweep, how it works, how it's applicable, and so forth? Okay, so we've painted over the past 12 minutes or so the big picture. What do we do? How do we do it in terms of building credibility, and how does personal credit fit in? So if we find that so in module 2, they do the soft credit pull, and then we'll find out, we'll get the data. And so we can look at a number of things. We can look at their inquiries. How many times have they applied for credit over the past 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months? So our reporting picks up those 3. And so what you and I know is that the more often, and so this is not you and I judging, is this the way the system should work? Because frankly, it does not matter what you think, and it doesn't matter what I think. We're just talking factually about how the system works. So this is not emotional, and this is not opinionated. Doesn't matter, unfortunately, what you think. Doesn't matter what I think. So we're going to be able to look at inquiries, numbers of times that credit has been applied for. Talking about hard inquiries, not soft inquiries, over the past 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. The way that credit scoring algorithms work is, if you have applied for credit multiple times, it makes you look riskier. Again, you may not agree, I may not agree, doesn't matter what you and I think. So in general, if we see more than 3 inquiries in the past 6 months, it often increases the risk. It'll lower the score a little bit, but it decreases what we'll call the fundability of the client. And that's where the credit sweep can come in. The credit sweep is very effective at removing applicable inquiries. So that's one element of assistance that the credit sweep has proven to be very successful on. The second aspect of personal credit that the credit sweep has proven to be effective on are bankruptcies. Now, again, you may have opinions on bankruptcy, I may have opinions, but it doesn't matter what any of our opinions are. So even though bankruptcies are legal and ethical, and they wipe out the debt, a bankruptcy public record being listed on the credit report is considered a risk factor. To me, it should be the opposite, but it doesn't matter what I think or what you think. So if the BK, the bankruptcy, is showing on the credit report, even if it was years ago, it tends to reduce the fundability of the person. So can that bankruptcy record be removed off the credit report? Absolutely. I mean, they took mine off. I had a bankruptcy several years ago, was impacting funding, impacting mortgage, and so forth. And so, yes, legally and ethically, the credit sweep can block, that's the verb, block the bankruptcy from showing on the credit reports. So we talked about blocking applicable inquiries to reduce those. It can block public records, which we're talking about now. Also, then there's derogatory trade lines. Derogatory trade lines can fall into lots of categories. We didn't pay a bill, so it charged off. We paid late, so it has late fees. Went into a collections account, those types of issues. And so credit sweep can also block applicable negative trade lines. So if we can block negative, then in many cases, the score will go up, often considerably. Now, it's true to have an optimal personal credit score, it's a combination of the presence of positives. So in other words, we are paying some bills on time. We have a good profile and we're paying bills on time. And then also the absence of negative. The credit sweep in itself is not adding positive trade lines. It is simply blocking applicable negative. But what you and I can do is we certainly can add positive trade lines as well. So can anyone get to a 700 plus credit score? Absolutely. If you add positive and remove negative as needed, so it needs to be an individualized strategy, absolutely. Now, the truth is we often really don't need a 700 score to get funding. The barometer we should desire to be at is a 680 or above. There are 3 primary consumer credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and each of them have a number of different credit scoring algorithms. So the truth is each of us don't have just one credit score. We don't have just 3 credit scores, one from each bureau. We have lots of different credit scores depending upon the algorithm. Sometimes I'll interface with a client and they'll want a battle. It's like I was talking to a lady yesterday and her FICO bank card version 8 came in, I'm guessing or trying to remember, but it was like a 592, something like that, 592, I believe. And I was talking to her and we were reviewing her credit and she said, no, it's not a 592, it's a 601. Well, you're probably right, ma'am. Based upon some other algorithm, I bet it is 601 on that algorithm, the algorithm that the lenders typically use, which is what we look at as 592. But in either case, that's horrible credit, right? It's horrible credit. There's what we call prime credit and subprime. Prime is typically described as 680 or above. So we all should want to be prime. If we're subprime, we shouldn't be satisfied with that. Again, I know that you can always push back and say, well, Tom, some of these clients don't want to use personal credit for funding, and so this doesn't apply. Okay, granted, there's different sources of capital. Not all of them use personal credit. That is true. But some do, and so they're going to have more options. But in general, it's kind of like having high cholesterol. Is there ever a good reason to have high cholesterol? No. Is it better to not have high cholesterol? Of course. So let's flip that around. Is there ever a good reason to have shitty credit? No. Are there things that you can do to improve your credit so it looks better? Yes. And should we do that? Yeah, it's logical. Just like if you have high cholesterol, you probably should do something about it, lifestyle or medicine, because it's going to shorten your life expectancy. So the credit sweep is how we go about helping those individuals. It's not credit repair. Sometimes people get caught up with that. Oh, this is credit repair. No, it's actually not. And we've had discussions with representatives, attorneys from the FTC to explain this is not credit repair. And we've all come to that agreement. This is not credit repair. So credit repair typically is the process of let's dispute. It's not mine. And it shows a bunch of dispute codes typically in your credit report. Credit repair sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I'm not going to make any official opinions on that. Some of you do credit repair as your own business or side business, and that's fine. I'm not here to judge that. But what you and I are talking about with credit sweep is not credit repair, according to us, according to the documents, and probably what I care most about, according to the Federal Trade Commission. And yes, I've talked to the attorneys and we've gotten this cleared. This is not credit repair. So instead, what it is, it's using paralegals. So it's using the legal model to block applicable negative items. Works, and those items are typically blocked permanently. And that was Hannah's question that I hadn't answered yet. They're typically blocked permanently. So it's a legal model using paralegals, fully compliant with the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Section 605B. So we're good there. Legal, not credit repair. Cost. It is set up to be a free program. And again, what we've learned, and probably what you'll learn, is it's always best to have client agreements in writing. Because if you don't have it in writing, people will make up their own rules and they'll try to apply it to you. And I've had, just yesterday, I had a lady, she had signed up for something and she was saying these odd things. And I'm like, ma'am, that's not what we promised to do. That's not what we do. That's not what we say that we'll do. That's not what's in the agreement. But that's what she wanted. Well, it's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't contract with us for something and then change all the rules and expect us to follow all your new rules that we didn't even know about. That's not the way business works. So everything that we do is in writing. The program is free, but there is a deposit. And so as long as they participate, then they get the deposit back. And that's not really unusual, right? If you and I went down to the local apartment complex to go rent a 2-bedroom apartment, they're probably going to charge a deposit. Why would they charge a deposit? Because sometimes people don't do what they say they'll do, and that way there's a ramification. So yes, there's a deposit, but the deposit comes back to them. All that's disclosed, of course, in writing. A very, very effective process, no risk to the client. And we've had extensive success story conversations, but the bottom line is it certainly works. So if you have a client that wants to enroll in the free credit sweep, you're welcome to refer them here and you'll make $100. So it's not a big deal, but it's free to them in the end. There's a deposit, but it's free to them in the end, and you make $100. So, I mean, how long does it take you to refer someone? I don't know, 2 minutes to fill this out, you make $100. Not all bad. If the client is going through the small business certification, so in other words, we're going through the process to get them credible on paper, then in those cases, the credit sweep will come rather organically because we will identify that there's some deficiencies based upon their soft credit pull. So normally you wouldn't have to make an outside pitch to someone about the credit sweep if they're going through the modules, because there we're going through the process of educating them, identifying credibility factors and resolving credibility factors. All right, so Ben's got a question regarding white label. And so you're right, Ben, at one point we had rolled out, we're considering doing it again, but at one point we had rolled out a white label version of this. And it was really strong because it allowed the white label partner to charge whatever they wanted to charge. And so they could mark it up and make more than $100. They could set up payment plans, what have you. There's some discussion about us kind of relaunching that. So that's one of the questions I have for you all before we wrap up. And there wouldn't be any charge, of course, for you to become a white label partner of the credit suite. But I'm curious if you could just respond back using the question and answer function of Zoom. If you had the opportunity to be a white label partner specifically for the free 60-day credit suite program, so it didn't cost you anything, you could price it however you want, would that be something of interest to you? So Al, Alfred, Ben, Bernard, Bruce, Charles, David, Gail, Hannah, Lon, Pauline, Scott, Terrence, Veronica, Wayne, others. So it's okay either way. I'm just curious because we experimented with that. We kind of did a beta test back last year. And I don't know, I don't even remember the number, so I don't want to misrepresent. We had a small number of people that said yes, they wanted to be a white label partner, because credit is big business, right? And there's big players in credit repair. And we've already talked about credit repair is not what we do, but this is a substitute for credit repair. It's often more effective, less costly, and such. But just curious if anyone, and so we'll be making that decision probably by July 1st if we're going to relaunch the white label version of that, and that'll be extended to everyone. All right, so does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns as we wrap it up? And so to answer Al's question, so you can market the free 60-day credit sweep right now. And so you just drive them here, get this filled out, put yourself as the referral source, make $100. Super simple. If we go back with the white label version, of course, it would be different. You wouldn't be referring them to our website. It would be self-contained, and that allows you to have your own pricing. So we would be the fulfillment behind the scenes. And with white label, well, let's go to the credit sweep. Since the paralegals are doing the work, there's not near as much servicing that is involved with feeding a client into the credit sweep as the whole access to capital. Because access to capital, you got the 4 modules, you got the lessons, the learning objectives, and that, and it's fine, and you make good money off that. But in contrast, this is almost pure profit because there's almost no time commitment you have to put into it. So one of the things we're thinking about in July is placing more emphasis on this. It actually works nicely both ways, because the truth is most people that are focused on improving their credit, they have a desired reason for having better credit. Usually they want to use their credit to either buy a home, buy a car, get business financing, what have you. So this could be used as a door opener for our small business clients, but it wouldn't be an exact match. You'll have many people that want to use the credit sweep that in fact don't have a desire to get a business loan. All right, so let's see if we have any notes. Okay, so Pauline asked the process. And so what happens is, as always, we have a written agreement. So we will, when someone inquires, they will get an Adobe version of the written agreement. And so then they'll complete that. And then the refundable deposit will be submitted. And then we need to do 3 things. We need to make sure that we have a proof of identity, which is typically a copy of the client's driver's license. And this is stated in the client agreement. Secondly, we need to make sure we have a POA, proof of address. And a proof of address is usually a utility bill or a bank statement less than 30 days old that, of course, matches the client's name and address. And then also we need to have credit monitoring, because the credit monitoring is important for both the paralegals to assess improvement and change, and also for the client. But all of that, frankly, is contained very explicitly in the agreement that would be sent to the client once this form is filled out. So I would say for those of you that want to earn an extra $100 a pop, you could certainly promote this if you want, and then we'll be making a decision going into July if we're going to relaunch on a larger scale the white label program for the credit sweep. And again, I don't expect there to be any cost to be a white label partner on the credit sweep program. It's a different white label program because it's a different model, right? You're setting the pricing however you want. You can collect from clients on monthly payments or upfront and so forth. So there's some things that this model can do that credit repair can't. Credit repair does not allow for advance fees. And so, but this is not, it's legal documentation. So it does allow you to be able to accept payment up front, but some people would prefer to make payments. Okay, any other questions we have today on the 60-day credit sweep? We spent a fair amount of time at the beginning of our call today talking about the big picture of what we do and narrow down how this fits. And so with that being said, you need to know that this is a resource. You need to know that you and I are here to reduce barriers to help people get funding and build their credibility. There are the 3 C's: credit, capacity, and cash and collateral. And within credit, there are 2 types of credit: personal and business. Yes, we certainly want to focus on business. Yes, we certainly help clients build their business credit, but we would be remiss to not understand that personal credit impacts their access to capital as well. And this is proven. We're over a year. Well, we started actually, I think, in January of last year, so we're really 18 months into this, and we've consistently seen very good results. All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you back tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Let us know if we can help you. Bye-bye.